this. For those who will not be on the line today, I just let you know that for legal reasons because the little screen tells me to. I want to thank everybody for joining us to go over the Suns Up Cover Up promotion from Florida Department of Health and Florida State Parks. Really neat thing about this is we've been able to reach out to our sister agency and see that we both have a need to inform people about safe recreating and about living healthy in Florida. And so I want to introduce Sue Higgins, the program director of the Comprehensive Cancer Control Program. Sue, are you on the line?
Yes, good morning, Rob.
Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. So if you haven't noticed, we have a lot of people in our parks every day, and a lot of times they're out in the sun, and they might not be making great decisions about protecting themselves. And so Sue will share some of her insight with us later on about how to be healthy in the sun. And also, if we're going to be doing this promotion, we wanted to make sure to put the tools in your hands, because you are on the front line, to be able to answer any questions that someone might have. So we'll go into details about what the promotion is, what it will be, and what we hope it grows to become. We will also go into details about what are the facts about sun safety, not only to protect yourself, but also if somebody has a question, you know which answers are safe to share. You know, I kind of joke that when I was growing up, my parents' idea of sun safety was Crisco. And so that's not kind of the message we want to share anymore. So I want to thank Sue and her team for pulling this together and providing us, sanctioned information that we can share with people if they request it from us. So some facts about skin cancer, and I don't want to focus too much on skin cancer because there's numerous other issues that come from overexposure to the sun. There's the discomfort of sunburn, there's premature aging, there's yellowing of the sclera of the eyes. There's a bunch of issues that happen with sun, and we don't necessarily want to be like, if you're in the sun, you get cancer. We want to definitely make sure that we communicate to people that wearing sunscreen is a good thing. So the most common form of cancer in the United States is skin cancer. 1 in 5 people in the U.S. will develop skin cancer during their lifetime. And most people, skin cancer is the most preventable cause of skin cancer is exposure to ultraviolet light, either from sun or from artificial sources like tanning beds. And we throw tanning beds in here not because it's our job to tell people not to go to a tanning bed, but for your personal knowledge. And UV rays can damage your skin in as little as 15 minutes. So you don't have to be out in the sun long to have sun damage yourself. So, Sue, are there any other facts you wanted to add or anything I missed possibly?
Sorry, I was on mute. No, I think you've hit the highlights. I mean, because it's true, because it's the most diagnosed cancer. We just want to ensure that people are informed in how to protect themselves because, honestly, we don't want them not to be physically active. We want them to be outdoors because it helps reduce other cancers. So being outdoors in the parks, being active, eating a healthy diet is very important for us. We just want to add one more layer of information to say, just please be careful, eyes, skin, hat, ears, so yeah, I think you've hit the highlights of the importance of skin cancer. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and then the other item Sue provided us was the UV protection chart. There's a UV index, which we'll be covering on the next slide, but it's kind of hard to be like, okay, my UV index is a 5. What does that mean? What do I need to do? So all the time, you need to have your eyes protected, and you need to be wearing sunscreen. But then as a UV chart increases in number, you also increase the protection you need. So the next slide is today's UV index forecast. And if you look, Florida is red, which is in the 8 to 9 range, and it's orange across most of the state, which is in the 6 to 8 range. So we are right in the middle, but still what's considered the high side of the UV index. So we need to be looking at protecting our heads. We need to be spending time in the shade. We need to be regularly applying sunscreen and wearing sunglasses. Pardon me, my apologies. So, and if you look at that page, there's a link on it. Pardon me. Which takes you to the UV forecast. And you can search by your zip code, or you can just look at the chart and it provides you the next 4 days in kind of the color zone, and also in just a number that you can apply to your area. So it looks like there's some cloudy weather over the Jacksonville area. So if that's where you are, your level's a little low today. Does anybody check their UV forecast before going outside? People are typing, yes, Beth does, and Renee doesn't. So, you know, I never did before. I tend to be a little bit, there's complexion ranges, and I tend to be a little bit on the darker side. I'm one of those people who tans more than I burn. But I also have a family history of melanoma. And so I've learned in my adult life, as I'm beginning to see discoloration spots and things like that, that I really need to put on that sunscreen. So I'm going to start using the UV index. And I kind of look at it like our beach flag information. You know, we provide it so that people can be safe. They make the decision about whether they still swim when there's a yellow flag or if they only swim when there's a green flag. So if people are asking about sun exposure, you can let them know about the UV forecast. So now that people know what their risk is, what should they be doing? They should be seeking shade under an umbrella, tree, or shelter. Maximize their protection between 10 and 4 p.m. So that's definitely when you want to be out of direct sunlight. Or making sure that you are covered up. And I have recently, I swore I never would, but I have recently gone to one of those UV swim shirts because, you know, why risk it? So that's another good thing you can recommend to people if they're like, oh, I just keep getting burned. You know, you can be like, oh, well, sunscreen is great, but they also sell these swim shirts that have UV built into them. Sunglasses, hat, long sleeves, and sunscreen. And also sunscreen should be broad spectrum with a sun protection factor of SPF of 15 or higher. And I want to be careful when I'm saying, you know, if people are like, oh, I'm having this problem, we can suggest general items to them. Oh, your sunscreen should be 15 or higher. Oh, you know, those swim shirts are very helpful in making sure you don't get burned. But we never want to call out a specific brand because then that could be viewed as an endorsement. So that's kind of like, you don't want to be like, oh, get the Speedo one, it's the best, you know, or get Tier, they're the greatest. You don't want to do that. And then reapplying sunscreen after 2 hours and after swimming, sweating, or toweling off is a great thing. And you can work this into your regular patrol. You know, when you carry the garbage bags in your back pocket and you ask people, hey, you know, I just want to let you know that there's a garbage can right over there, but I brought you this bag. Or when you're going around making sure everybody's all right, it's a great little opener to just be like, hey, I want to let you know I looked at the UV forecast. It's a 7 today, so make sure to reapply that sunscreen every 2 hours. And then if you have a concession and the person's like, oh, we don't have sunscreen, you can be like, oh, well, our concession right over there sells it. So it's another way we can tie in with our concessions. Is there anything at this point, Sue, or are you good? I just want to make sure
I think you make a strong point about not identifying a specific brand, because we would never do that also. But I definitely think you could kind of give a 1 second additional education on that, ensure that their product is broad spectrum. Because most people, some people are actually bringing tan enhancers and, SPF 4, which isn't going to be enough for them to cover as long as they're going to be out in the park. And so if they're going to be out swimming, obviously they're going to reapply after swimming, and then 2 hours, because generally by then it will have sweated off. But broad spectrum protects against both UVA and UVB rays. So it might just be one more infomercial if you want.
No, that's a really great point. All right, and sunscreen.
Is that what you guys have in your concession? Do you know if that's what is generally carried in the concession? Is it broad spectrum?
I believe so, but we can definitely pass that message along to our concessionaires to have broad spectrum sunscreen available. It's not something we can technically enforce. We would have to write that into the agreement when it was formed. But it is something we could look into in the future, is that we encourage you to carry broad spectrum. I know a lot of places carry NOAD or Bullfrog or Banana Boat, and those all generally have the broad spectrum unless they're on the lower side or the tanning specific products.
Great, and if it's feasible that when you're doing the agreement, also we try to bring attention to the lip balms, that the lip balms also has SPF, because it's a common place where you can burn. Yes.
Okay, yeah, oh, definitely. And actually, this kind of goes into our next item, is occasionally Sue has stocks or supplies of sunscreen. That's a great question, Renee. Let me finish this and then we'll come back to it. So Sue gave us some sunscreen to use at our sports ability events across the state, which is very useful. And when we launched the website and the informational component about this to the public, Sue's team has also printed 4,000, is that right? 4,000 window clings?
3,500.
3,500. And so we'll be distributing those to 10 parks that were selected based on location. There's 2 in each district. And then we'll also be sending sunscreen samples as kind of a kickoff. And everybody who comes in the park that day will go ahead and get a sample of sunscreen and a window cling. We're hoping to expand that program as it matures. And we're looking at launching that in May. Did we settle on the first weekend in May?
Yes.
May 9th, I believe.
May 9th.
And so it'll just be the second weekend in May. Just as people come in through the gate, hand them out. But then we're also looking at specific programs. Yes, Beth, the heads up will be going out this week. I want to make sure they have lots of heads up and also have the option to say, not at my park. And then we can go to the next one on our list. Thank you, Beth. So we're going to be looking at providing sunscreen on a wider range in upcoming fiscal years. So I don't want people to think just because we're starting out with 10 parks, it's not going to have an effect at my park. We definitely want to grow this and see what we can continue with it. So sunscreen, apply 30 minutes before going outside. That way it has time to absorb into your skin. Broad spectrum sunscreen that protects both against UVA, premature aging. You want to protect yourself against UVB rays, which burn your skin, and the UVA also cause the eye damage. Both of them cause skin cancer. So that's really neat. I didn't know the difference until I had read this before. Always check the expiration date. I know that I always tried to carry some sunscreen with me when I was doing a program. That way, if anybody forgot it, I could just kind of leave it there, and if they wanted to put it on, they could. But you want to make sure that, like all things, over time, it becomes less effective. And so we want to make sure that if we are providing sunscreen, it's within date. There is also sometimes in your first aid kits, there's a sunscreen supply. So check that frequently as well. Sue. Go ahead.
Sorry. If I could add, the FDA is required that the sunscreen should last at its optimal rate when you first purchase it for the next 3 years. if you find sunscreen, if you're purchasing and you don't see an expiration date on it, easy thing to do is just put a marker on the bottom of when it is. But truthfully, what the dermatologist will tell you is that you should be using it within a year, because I think we're going to go more in detail later about how much to put on. So you should not be having it shelved too long, because you should be using it.
Yeah, unless you have like a 50-gallon drum, you're going to be using it pretty quickly. This is another really interesting thing, the SPF calculation. So once you put on sunscreen, how long am I in the sun? And so I really like this. If you typically burn within 15 minutes of being exposed to the sun without sunscreen, if you put on SPF 15, you are covered for approximately 225 minutes. Now that's meaning you haven't swum and washed it off, you aren't sweating and sweated it off, you haven't rubbed it off. So you definitely want to reapply more frequently than that, but that is your estimated coverage. Protect babies. So of course, the thing about children is they can't provide safety for themselves. We have to provide it for them. And I was at the beach this weekend out at Henderson Beach. Beautiful day with my 4 nieces and nephews and my brother. And my brother, his wife was away, and he was putting the sunscreen on their daughter. And he was putting enough on. Some might have called it too much. But it was great to see, because growing up, like I said, our idea of sunscreen was 4. And then you put the tanning oil on too. And then this is another one that I bolded, was a person's risk of melanoma doubles if he or she has had more than 5 sunburns. So I know in my life I can count back. I've had more than 5. So my risk for melanoma is already doubled. So I thought that was another really good point, is, it's not a lot. It's not like, oh, I only burn once a year, I'm fine. Anybody have any questions or points they'd like to add at this point?
So I'm just going to add a quick one that's true also, because of going to a tanning bed, and I know necessarily this isn't what it is, but if people are curious, because it's so intense, you increase your chance by 75% of being diagnosed with melanoma if you're using a tanning bed before the age of 35. So it's just the intensity of the sun, of these UVA rays penetrating. So you make a great point. Just keep reapplying, just check your skin. So the chances are there, just because we're in a sunny state.
Yeah, and you and I were talking about how Australia has a big UV problem because the ozone layer is thinner there, but also people were still going to tanning beds, so the country outlawed tanning beds because melanoma is such a public health risk there.
Right. True.
And we're not far off from Australia. So sunscreen selection. This is a great PDF which you can print out and put up in a kiosk if you so choose. That is available from the American Academy of Dermatology. There's a link to it on the web. Again, we want to focus on being safe. We don't necessarily want to focus on the word cancer, but we still want to provide information. The thing I found most interesting is I know I do not use enough sunscreen, because I should be using a shot glass full every time I put on sunscreen. And then here it's also really nice because it defines the difference between what water resistant is and what that means. It doesn't mean you're good. You put it on in the morning and you're good for the rest of the day. It defines broad spectrum, and we suggest 15 or higher, but this suggests 30 or higher. You're never in danger if you go higher than what's suggested. Then I have this video from the American Association of Dermatology, I believe, that I want to play, which highlights how to put on sunscreen. Where'd you go? Oh, I guess I can't make it go full size. Sorry about that. Okay, it looks like somebody accidentally clicked something. So there we go, and I'll catch us up. Sorry. There we are. All right, and I'm sorry about the little hiccups in the video there. Uh, but the link to that video is in your PDF, so you can watch that as well or share it with your park staff. If you want to take this to a meeting and only show that one little clip, it would definitely have a lot of benefit. And also, Sue, I wanted to ask you, uh, the the darker a person's pigmentation is, doesn't mean that they don't need sunscreen, correct?
That's correct. In fact, they've been doing a lot of studies out in research in California that they're actually seeing an increased diagnosis with with the Hispanic population. Again, it comes down to exposure. So, being a park ranger, you're exposed a lot more than say me, who I'm in an office most. You guys are outdoors a lot more. So yeah, pigmentation does not protect you automatically.
Excellent. Okay, and this is just another little diagram of how much sunscreen you should use. And what I like is it breaks it up over the portions of the body so that you can make sure that you get enough all over your body. Um, how to treat a sunburn? There's tons of folk remedies out there. I think all rubbing alcohol does is the evaporative effect, makes you feel like your skin is cooler. So that's not really a great thing. Lidocaine just numbs it. It doesn't treat it. So the things are, get out of the sun. Don't continue to be exposed to the sun. You can put a cold towel on your skin for 15 minutes a couple of times a day. Use a moisturizer that contains aloe vera or soy. Ibuprofen is okay to take. Ibuprofen is an anti-inflammatory, and I'm guessing any anti-inflammatory would be all right. Is that true, Sue?
Correct. Because sometimes there's a fever that's associated with it.
Right. Now, is that NSAIDs, or does that include Tylenol products as well?
No, ibuprofen.
Ibuprofen, okay. Drink lots of water and leave blisters alone. As tempting as it is to get rid of that blister, you want to let it heal and on its own time.
Okay.
Now, one thing my parents always made me do if I did get burned, and I know I'm throwing my parents under the bus a lot in this, was they made me take vitamin C. Does that show any effect?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
No.
Yeah. And I think I covered the other big ones, which are rubbing alcohol, witch hazel, and lidocaine, which just mask the symptoms but don't actually heal it.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Okay, and then we're nearing the end here, so this one's a little bit faster. In 2008, only 58% of adults said they usually practice at least one of the three sun protective behaviors. 32% said they were applying sunscreen, and 41% usually wear some type of protective clothing, 32% sought shade, and only 45% of young adults use protective methods, while 60% of them, and of course, as always, women are more cautious than men traditionally, so women are more active in sunscreen. And there's more facts you can find with this link right here. And then also for teens, the numbers are even lower. You know, when you're a teenager, that frontal lobe's not fully developed, your risk-taking abilities are much higher than when you're an adult. You see that the 14% of girls and 7% of boys are wearing sunscreen regularly, and their bodies are still developing, so they're more susceptible to damage further on. And so then Sue has provided these great links for you to go ahead and find more information to share with either your park staff or to share with each other or with park visitors. And I want to say thank you for joining us. I want to cover a couple other things. So we're going to be doing the co-promotion, which will involve floridastateparks.org. And so right here, just as we use this area to advertise Junior Ranger and our social media, this image of the person under the beach umbrella with the Suns Up Cover Up logo will go there, and that will redirect people to the Department of Health's page. I also want to point out that we have the healthy campfire cooking programs here, so you can click on that, and that will take you to some healthy campfire recipes that you can print and have available for people who are coming to visit your park, or that you could include in a program. And each recipe has the nutrition information and also an activity you can do in a park to offset those calories. So this is my favorite. There's a fish recipe, and if you go fishing for 95 minutes, you burn off the calories. So you can catch your fish, cook your fish with this recipe, and burn off the calories all at the same time. The other thing I want to show people is that we now have all of the Junior Ranger activities posted. So this is going to be a little bit hard to see, but they're all here, so you can click on any of them. I also want to remind people, if you haven't seen it yet, Everybody's Park Manager got a survey about some interpretive and recreational materials and marketing materials we're trying to buy. So if you are the person who oversees that at your park, okay. Renee, yeah, thank you. You know, vitamin C is never bad. The great thing about vitamin C is any extra that you absorb, you can't absorb extra. You just pass it in your urine. So you can't get too much vitamin C. Then the other thing I wanted to cover with you, Sue, is vitamin D. Does sunscreen affect your body's ability to synthesize vitamin D?
I am not sure of that. I mean, I know the tanning facilities have always made the argument that you need sun to, get vitamin D. As for absorption, I'm sorry, I'm not sure. I know that I've always been told from the dermatologist that you will get the sun needed acquired for you to get the vitamin D that you want. They're like walking to your car, going to the grocery store, just being out getting the mail, that you will get about 15 minutes worth of sun, and that is enough time for you to get the level of vitamin D. But I'm sorry, Rob, I don't know about absorption.
Right. And so, Renee, you asked this earlier, and I wanted to make sure we covered it. I was also listening to a report the other day that where we're seeing vitamin D deficiencies crop up is in very inner city areas. So vitamin D is important because nobody wants rickets. And that is one of the consequences of insufficient vitamin D. It's also been tied to lack of energy and other items. And so now it's added to our milk. Our body uses sunlight to process it so that it can be absorbed by the body. But as Sue was saying, the actual amount of sunlight you need will not be depleted by the sunscreen you wear. But it is still good to promote people to be outside to increase their amounts of available vitamin D, especially if you are close to an urban area where children are going outside less and less.
You're right, Rob. You make a great point. Because you will absorb it through other, just eating habits. I mean, unless you have an extremely strict vegan diet where you're not getting vitamin D from like the milk products or fish or eggs, I mean, it's a little bit more of a challenge for you to get it. But I mean, still, there's opportunities of supplements. So yeah, but generally you should be absorbing it through your food and just daily activity.
Excellent. All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us. And Renee, did we cover the points you were concerned about, or was there something you'd like to share with the group about vitamin D? Okay, excellent. So if you haven't, if you could remind your park managers to fill out the survey if they haven't done it already, or you can ask them about it. We're hoping to order. We asked people how many more Junior Ranger folders you want. So if your park is running low on Junior Ranger folders, we will definitely get you some of those. There's also information about checkout backpacks, trail guide kits, and some other items. So it's just right now we're asking you to see how much you would like. And I see a message coming in from Warren. I think he already did his. Okay, excellent. Thank you, Warren. Yeah, and I ask you, we didn't have that many people tune into this one. I know there was something going on in D3 at the same time and a couple other places, but this would be great information to share with your park staff, and it's also going to be available by linking to DOH's page when that launches, and I'll announce that in the next Sparks newsletter. So thanks so much for joining us, and everyone have a great, safe, sun-safe day.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you, Sue.